Welcome. Happy New Year, everyone. It's time for the annual renewal of the Travel Editors Predictions. I'm Henry Hemming, advisor to TravMedia. Welcome. Great to have you all with us. So, yeah, it's Travel Editors 2025 Predictions, our first event of the year. What a way to kick off as we ask three of the nation's top travel editors to deliver their thoughts and predictions on the travel year ahead. Yeah, you heard it right. In a sensational twist to business best practice, we're putting Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT to one side, and we're actually asking three human beings what they think is going to happen this year. Refreshing change. Our panel, best in the business, we welcome Ben Ross, Head of Travel, The Telegraph. Hi, Ben. Laura Jackson, Deputy Head of Travel at The Times and Sunday Times. And of course, the present and always popular Lisa Minot, Head of Travel at The Sun. Hi, Lisa. So we're here to gauge our panelists' thoughts on which destinations will surprise, which will prevail, which travel categories may bump, and what the purchasing patterns and people's actual travel schedules may look like this year. And we'll also ask them what murky unknowns they happen to, well, know about. As ever, our team may also offer some intel on how best to pitch your ideas to their team and to their wider group of freelancers. Today's webinar often ends up doubling up as a training session. I'm going to ask each of our team members to start off with their thoughts on the year ahead, and that'll take us to about halfway, and then we'll go over to questions. So do start putting your questions into the Zoom Q&A, and I will try to get through as many as I can and give you a shout out. And finally, do share your thoughts on social. We're at TravMedia_UK. Please feature the panelists. We love to see your blogs and posts. So we're going to get cracking, and Laura has very kindly offered to go first. So to introduce Laura, you all know her and she needs no introduction. Laura's the Deputy Head of Travel at The Times and Sunday Times. She's been a journalist for over 2 decades in a career spanning publications such as The Express and Woman's Own, through to digital titles such as Love Exploring. She's worked at The Times since March 2022 and has been Deputy Head of Travel since May of 23. And she helps Laura helped at The Times Head of Travel, Claire Irvin, lead a team of 12 members, and her personal travel specialisms are cruise, city breaks, and soft adventure. In her spare time, she loves yoga, sound baths, that was new to me, and indeed playing the cello. Laura, it's lovely to have you here. And over to you for your thoughts, please.
Yeah, good morning. Well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate being here this morning, Henry. It's fantastic to kick the new year off with this session. So I sort of want to start with the kind of good news in terms of the predictions and the stuff that I'm seeing from our side on the desk. So I think the great thing is that there's more choice and we are better placed than ever before. There are so many new routes. BA, I think is really interesting that they're going to be going into Tbilisi. I think that's going to open up Georgia and Armenia. The new flights to Greenland, we actually covered that just slightly before Christmas, to Nuuk. Virgin going back into Toronto. Emirates are rolling out further routes from the UAE. So and I also think that regional airports, which is something we do really cover and is a real focus for us. So a lot of our readers are outside of the M25. So where there are new routes, particularly for city breaks and short breaks around Europe, we are always looking to be covering that. I think really, I mean, a pat on the back for the whole industry, really. I think everyone has stepped up. And certainly those of you who saw Chris Haslam's 88 holidays for 2025 will also appreciate the absolute depth that people are going to in terms of itineraries and bringing new hotels to the fore. I think I'm also really seeing a bit more interest in places like Australia. I think there has still been a bit of nervousness from the pandemic. I think it's taken a little bit of time, a lot longer than people thought it was going to. And this is probably really going to be the first truly normal year of travel, I think. And we're definitely seeing some of that over-tourism that we've seen in Europe is also perhaps people, really just wanting to go back to Europe and be looking towards short haul. I think things like the Ashes, and sports tourism this year. That's something that's really key for us. There's a lot of sport going on. Lions Rugby Tour in Australia, the Ashes at the end of the year, I think are going to put Australia, back on our TV screens as well, which I think is another thing that really helps inspire people to be booking. Morocco for things like AFCON. Even if you're not into your sport this year, you're going to be feeling inspired by these things. I think the currency fluctuations we've seen are also going to be interesting. That's not necessarily good news. I mean, today the dollar is just back on that slide. And really, so my pick is Canada this year, where there is sort of less currency fluctuations, although we'll see what happens. Canada has just lost their very handsome Justin Trudeau. So, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But at the moment, certainly when I was last in Canada, it feels like better value, than when you're traveling within the US, and Egypt as well. Although there's obviously been some nervousness about the Middle East, I think it's still offering really good value. And it's, the euro as well. I think there is still a bit of a downward trend there that we've seen, and it's just really interesting seeing what's happened between December and now actually with currencies. And I think that will continue to fluctuate. But yeah, there's good news because there is value to be had for readers in places like Canada and Egypt, but you've got to do a bit of hunting and a bit of research on really, play the game there. And, from the bad news side, really, geopolitics, we are, just a week away from Trump's inauguration. Obviously, last week, all the stuff about Greenland, what is going to happen in the Middle East. It's, it is the million-dollar question, and no one has the crystal ball for that. But, the impact on places like Jordan, where actually, Liz Edwards went there at the back end of last year. We are still keen to be promoting places like Oman as well. So, I'm really trying to make sure that we get some balance. Not everywhere is off limits. Times is all about, our readers, they're intelligent. They will make those decisions for themselves, whether they want to go. They'll look at the FCDO advice. And they will decide for themselves. And our job as journalists is really to be presenting, this is available to you if you want to go and do that. Climate change, a huge portion of my week last week was dominated by the LA story. I mean, it's impossible to know what all this means, but I think I'm going to see with our readership traditionally off-peak shoulder seasons expanding even further. So where we've had that traditional, May, June, September, October, I think with Easter being earlier this year, April is going to be another real key travel point for our readership. And the other thing I'm just constantly advising readers about, and really could do with some help with, is keeping track of visa and entry requirements. We've had all sorts of things. You don't need a visa for Thailand if you're staying for under 60 days. Last year we saw Sri Lanka remove the need for an electronic authorization and then put it back in. These things are constantly fluctuating, and those are things I really want to be letting readers know about. So if you do look after a tourist board and there is advice, please do let us know on the desk, because it's something I'm constantly saying to readers, check and check again. There's things like those visas for transit through China as well. A lot of these things are very confusing, and readers look to us to really help unpick those sorts of things. So I think those are sort of the key themes that I'm seeing, right now for this year. And just a bit of an overview really about what's going on our side on the Times. So there's lots of exciting things happening this year, not just on travel, but in the wider Times ecosystem. You will probably notice if you're a Times subscriber and you view your desktop navigation, there are brand new buttons in place at the top of the page, so you can get through to Life and Style, which is where you'll find travel. We've got a whole new culture section. The entire thing has been redesigned. And the app that goes with that is coming shortly as well. So if you're a subscriber and you have the app, the current app that you're seeing is going to change hopefully before the end of February. There's still a lot of tech things that are being worked through there, but that will be launching soon. And I think sort of the main thing with that is just to remember that travel stuff is, all of our content is in front of the paywall. So if you go to thetimes.com, no, it's .com now. We've moved away from .co.uk. So thetimes.com/travel. That's where you'll find all of our travel stories through to our destination guides. And all of that is actually being reworked. We're having a bit of a redesign. I'm in the middle of getting 300 new hub pages that will collate our content together. And the idea is that will help our users find the stories that they need as well. So big redesign and projects in the pipeline there. And then staff updates, Liz Edwards, who many of you will know, not PR Liz Edwards, always very confusing that we've got Liz Edwards at Cunard, and then also Laura Jackson at ABTA as well. So we've got two people on the travel desk with the same names as notable people in NPR, so that's always fun. But our Liz Edwards on the Sunday Times is currently on secondment over on the magazine. So we have readjusted things slightly, and Jenny Code is on leave at the moment. So at the moment on the print side of things, it's myself, Gemma Bowes, who is our associate editor, Kathy Adams, who many of you will know, and also Mike Atkins, who has been working as our chief sub-editor, but now actually moves across from the subbing side, from the dark side to the light side. So Mike has been with us for a few weeks as well. I'm sure many of you will want to get to know him as well. He's going to be commissioning predominantly on Sunday, but will also be contributing to the Saturday Times as well. And I mean, I think the most important things to say really are that we're very digitally focused. You will note that a lot of our stories come out, you'll see it in print on Saturday, but will have already been online earlier in the week, sometimes several days ahead of the print section. So we're publishing 7 days a week. And with that in mind, I think the one thing I sort of just wanted to flag is that we're always looking for exclusives for hotel reviews specifically. And the thing that's really changed about that over the last 12 months is the fact that we're now .com. I think sometimes there's a tendency to think that we could have perhaps a kind of print exclusive that would go out on a Saturday, but we really need these to be for online as well. They're often going up as early as possible. We need our journalists to be out there and first in the queue to be seeing new hotels. And ideally not on group trips. We are still doing some group trips. There are exceptions to that, but we much prefer individual trips, setting stuff up that's bespoke for us, partly so that we're making sure we've got a point of difference from other publications as well, really. And the main thing I would say is please email any pitches and releases. It's really difficult. There's more chance of getting hold of Lord Lucan, to be honest, than getting them on the phone most of the time. We're all in and out of meetings. If you can email, I would massively appreciate that, as opposed to phoning. If it's really urgent, do WhatsApp me. My number is on the bottom of my sign off. So, you know, it's an easier way of getting hold of me on my work phone. But generally, I think on the desk we prefer email, really. And there is no good time to be sending pitches. We're here, pretty much 7 days a week. So definitely, obviously, Monday to Friday is preferable. But I mean, an early morning definitely does work, particularly on Monday and Tuesday when we've got big meetings and big conferences to plan the week ahead. But I would say certainly don't hold back. If you think you've got a brilliant story at 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, then don't hesitate to send it then rather than holding out till 11 a.m. on Monday morning.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. Lots to come back to you on. I'd missed the Times move to .com. Very interesting in terms of the world's leading media titles' desire to become global titles.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Very interesting. We're all watching that space with considerable interest. To Ben Ross, the head of travel at the Telegraph, who began his travel writing career in 2001, becoming travel editor of The Independent in 2007, then head of travel for The Independent in 2011. So Ben joined the Telegraph in 2014 and is responsible for all of the Telegraph's travel content in print and online. Ben, we'd love to hear your predictions for 2025.
Oh, that's very kind. My predictions for 2025 overlap harrowingly closely with what Laura feels that the world is going to be, but I will try and differentiate slightly. I mean, I do think. I mean, you very kindly asked me to appear on this panel last year, I think, and a lot of the themes that we explored then, I think, are still very valid this year. The UK, I think that's something that is really important to touch on. I think is often not talked about enough. It's still of enormous interest to our readers. I mean, often that is to do with whether it's too expensive or too overcrowded. But I think these themes tend to sort of disappear when it comes to actually booking. There's a huge interest in the old favourites, Cornwall, Devon, the Lake District, and we see that being sort of assessed a huge amount in our evergreen content, which is a huge amount of what the Telegraph is now focusing on now. But even then, there are sort of we need far more on Yorkshire, we need far more on Pembrokeshire. There's a huge fascination with Scotland. So these are places I think we over the coming year will be delivering far more content on. We know that our readers are really, really interested in the UK, on particularly quirky parts of the UK. That feels like something that there's always a real sort of excitement and interest in, and I think we'll try and do much more on that, or more than we already do, which I think is substantial. So things like the Wainwright Coast to Coast Trail, which we mentioned in the destination roundup for 2025, which I can share a link for. I mean, that's exactly what our readers want to be doing, and I think it's really important that we cover that sort of topic. I was quite interested in the I don't want to go through the sort of cliched trends thing, but I was quite interested in this notion that Host Seasons came up about holiday snacking in the UK. The idea that people will be doing more and more shorter trips around Britain, and they seem to be seeing a huge uptick in that. And I think that will be a really interesting theme. I really hope that's something that we can explore a little bit more. I think short breaks are something that maybe don't get the coverage that they should, and we should cover a little bit more. From a short haul point of view, Laura mentioned over-tourism, and it's something we wrote a huge amount about last year, and I doubt very much whether that's going to go away this year. Obviously, thematically came out quite a lot from the Canaries and Balearics and coastal Spain. That seemed to be where a lot of the ire that was directed against British tourists in particular was directed. I think sometimes that crossed a line, and I think I certainly hope that doesn't happen again this year. It's a really important issue, and it's something that I think we should be talking about. I suppose wrapped into that is a bit of the backlash against Airbnb. I think that might become something that tourists actively think about soon. You know, you've seen Barcelona really sort of clamping down on new holiday lets and indeed new hotels. That's affecting Amsterdam as well. You know, I think it's something that we need to discuss. I think it's something that we need to really get to grips with, and I think it will be an interesting avenue to explore as the year goes by. Climate, yes, as I mean, it's the biggest thing any of us can ever be thinking about. The awful sort of wildfires in LA, I think, have really driven home exactly how urgent and difficult this problem is. But it does affect us close to home as well. So how heat will affect the Med, and I think that maybe that talks a little bit to what Laura was alluding to earlier about shoulder seasons as well. You know, you do get this extraordinary heat, particularly in the Med in summer now, and maybe people who are lucky enough not to be traveling with children, or in my case, married to teachers, will be able to move their plans a little bit around and potentially able to avoid that key heat. The shoulder season, I think, is becoming a bigger and bigger thing, particularly for our Telegraph readers who are very, very able to sort of move their plans around, tend to be quite flexible, tend to be able to move at, you know, the key times of the year rather than the ones that are absolutely delivered via school holidays. So I think that will be interesting. Completely agree with Laura about new routes. Does seem to be a lot of expansion. It's been really interesting watching that come on. But I also I wanted to add that I think it does feel a little bit that flights are costing more this year, particularly at the key holiday times. I've just commissioned Nick Trent to write a big story about that. I think it is going to become a big issue. I think most of it is to do with where the hardware is. I think there's still the re-gearing after COVID, but it does feel as though if you sort of compare and contrast, it does flight costs do seem to have gone up. So value, I guess, will become again a really important consideration for our readers. And then I guess when you're in value and you're in heat, maybe it's about alternatives to the Med in summer. I mean, by far the majority of all our readers will be going to the Med, and that's a wonderful thing. So Greece, Turkey is still very, very good value, although it's been fluctuating a little bit recently. I think people will really want to be returning to those places. So, but should we be offering alternatives like Northern Europe? You know, should people be going to the Alps, or should they be going to Scandinavia as an alternative potentially? I think we'll try and talk to that as much as we possibly can. And we've done that in the past as well, but it does, obviously with the increased heat of the planet, that becomes a more sort of cogent, a more sort of important thing to be considering. Italy, from our point of view, still a huge amount of interest. Nice if we can deliver stories that are just that little bit away from the mainstream. And I think off the mainstream in terms of city breaks as well, we do get a huge amount of interest from our readers in sort of secret city stuff. We did a great piece by Hazel Plush at the weekend about getting to cities that are away from major aviation hubs, because you will get that sort of crowd-free alternative. I think more of that sort of story feels like it could be quite interesting. Greenland, which again Laura mentioned, feels like it's in quite an interesting one at the moment. I mean, assuming President Trump doesn't get his way, it does feel like it's a really important cruise destination. I was there last year and I found it absolutely fascinating. And they are obviously, I think, trying to manage as carefully as possible the increase in tourism that they actively want and actively are seeking, but they want to make sure that has the smallest environmental effect as possible. So it'd be interesting to follow that up and make sure that's added to. Middle East, again, as Laura mentioned, huge issue. I think I would just reaffirm what Laura said. I think it's really important that readers aren't confused by a sort of, I mean, what is an extraordinary, which is the key bad news story of our time at the moment, that they don't think that extends across an entire region. When I think often there are areas that I think get pulled into that a little bit. It'd be very nice if we can make sure that places like Jordan and, where appropriate, Egypt get the coverage that those countries deserve. I think that's really important. I think, again, in the long haul sphere, Japan, we talked about this last year, felt like it was really swimming back into focus. Towards the end of the year, it started to become better value as well, which I think is really exciting. So it feels like that's going to be a big deal for next year. I was interested in Vietnam as well. 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. That feels like it's another chance to. I mean, I love Vietnam. I've always enjoyed visiting it, and I do think it's one of those sort of incredibly dynamic countries. So anything that we can use as an excuse to write about that, I think we will do. In our 2025 roundup that we did at the beginning of the year, the Eastern Cape in South Africa came up as something that we thought people should explore a little bit more, as opposed to the Western Cape around Cape Town. I think that could be an interesting thing to consider as well. There's always good opportunities with the value of the rand in relation to the pound, and Telegraph readers are massive fans of South Africa anyway, so I think we should be trying to make them explore make them widen their horizons a little bit. Ditto Sri Lanka, I think, again, another country that really wants readers, and I think it's really important that we can get them going there. The Ashes series, as Laura mentioned, again, those wonderful, great reasons, sporting heroism, hopefully, for people to go out and see what's probably a less balmy army now, but I think that's very important. What else? So US, I think Laura talked about this as well. It'd be really interesting to see how that fares. It's hugely important to us as from an audience perspective. Again, we might be talking as much about value as the destination itself, trying to find different ways of exploring that particular nation without it becoming too expensive. There's an anniversary of the 250th anniversary, apparently, of the shot that rang out around the world, the beginning of the Revolutionary War this year in Lexington. So we'll be talking about that because that's the sort of thing that fascinates our readers. So we'll be cracking on. We haven't mentioned rail. I think that's a really important thing. All that amazing news about sleeper services. Every time we write about sleeper services, our readers go bananas. So I think, in a good way, not bananas in a bad way. We want them to be happy. So we'll be following that up. Lots and lots of rails, lots of exciting stuff going on. It'll be interesting to see how the Virgin story about whether they're going to buy up lots of rolling stock to take the Eurostar route on is interesting. That's interesting as well. See how that develops. But in general, anything we write about rail chimes massively with our readership. So just from a sheer volume point of view, I will be increasing our content on that. Ditto cruise. I think it's the same as last year, really, from my point of view on that. It's about cruising well. That we will be talking as much as new to cruise, which I think is a really important audience sector, but it is something that I think we have an increasingly sophisticated audience when it comes to cruise. So they just want to know that they're doing it in the right places with the right operators, and we'll be talking about that as much as possible. And then I get hotels. I wondered. Laura mentioned Thailand and the visa-free status, but it's the White Lotus is coming out this year as well, and that's always seen a little spike around of interest at that time. So Thailand could really benefit from that. I think that would be good. And then we ran a piece at the end of last year, which I think could be pertinent for London, about a huge number of luxury hotels expanding what they have and opening this year and last year, coming to a point where I think there's more than 700 new beds in the luxury sector in London this year. So that could turn into oversupply. We might be talking about the sort of opposite story from last year when we were all talking about £1,000 bed nights. Maybe that will have an effect on pricing for the luxury sector in London. Very quickly, because time is ticking on. Telegraph too is doing extraordinary things in terms of the way we expand our content, but we can talk about that a little bit later if you like, Henry. The fundamental gist though is that evergreen content, expanding destination guide coverage, just really making sure that we are a sort of the first port of call for readers who want to know more about a destination, as much as the first port of call for readers who want to know about what's going on in the news of travel, or what's going on with a particularly wonderful first-person piece. We will be investing in and exploring that coverage as much as possible on our beautifully redesigned website.
Fantastic. Great stuff, Ben. I'm hoping at the end of today's session to ask each of you where you would personally like to be traveling this year. So I get the sense that you want to be invited to Vietnam or possibly to Australia for the Ashes. So
no, I have a different answer. I can save that up. Don't worry, it's fine.
Fantastic. All right, I'll try and get that at the end. That was a wonderful summary, Ben. Thank you so much. Lisa Minot, Head of Travel of the Sun. Lisa has amassed 4 decades of media experience in travel news and reviews, the longest standing travel editor in the UK. She leads the digital and print teams at the Sun that have won countless accolades, including, of course, the TravMedia national newspaper tabloid travel section of the year award last year. And if I may, on that point, little reminder to everyone in our audience, you need to get your entries in pretty soon because deadline is approaching. Lisa edits the travel pages that appear in the Sun's print editions on Saturdays, Sundays and Tuesdays. And it gives me the chance to ask you, Lisa, tell us where the sun will shine this year.
Well, I mean, hey, thanks very much, Henry. It's really great to chat to everybody. I think that Laura and Ben have given a fantastic introduction into where they will be focusing. And of course, a lot of that will come across for us as well. So definitely all of those trends they're talking about. It's always the worst thing when you come last. You have to then just sort of say, and what they said. Definitely, I think for us at the Sun, the UK remains a vital part of the things. We aim to have at least one piece in the paper in every section, and of course online on the UK. It's a huge priority for us. We started off the year with our Best of British series, which was really about elevating the content that we were doing online in terms of really going a deep dive into destinations, making sure we had great video to go with it, polls, quizzes, everything else. We're going to be repeating that this year with our deep dive into the best of abroad. So taking some of the favourite destinations that some readers go to and really having a proper deep dive into it with lots of expert, local-led content and recommendations. And that's, I think, another thing that we're going to really be focusing on a lot this year. Yes, we've got all of those trends that I agree with the others in terms of the, the shoulder breaks. That's going to be something we're really going to be sort of pushing and looking at as well. Long haul Thailand and Vietnam. Yes, of course, we've got somebody heading off to Vietnam this week to do a really great deep dive around there. So in terms of trends, I agree with the other two, exactly the same. Where we're going this year, I think we need to focus a lot more on expert content, and that's what we'll be looking for throughout the year. In an era of sort of quite drowning out AI, pretty poor content, we need to try to make sure that we are really highlighting expert voices, user-led content as well. So user-generated content is going to be really important for us. But people who've actually lived and been somewhere and are actually going to have a voice of authority, that is really going to be important for us in the coming year. In print, we have got a new column every Saturday. So the Take 3 column is no more, and we have a new column which is a Spotlight On column. And again, we're talking a very basic format. Anybody who's interested in sort of putting something forward for that, I'd love to see some more ideas. There's been a little bit of confusion with some people about some PRs about what it actually involves. It's not just about giving me a hotel and saying that the bar's nice and the restaurant's nice. It's about trying to see if you can collaborate with us and come up with that expert sort of content from people who actually live in the area. So instead of just telling me that you've got a great hotel that's got a nice bar, can you reach out to the hotel and ask them, where are their hidden gems? Where are their spots that they, the people in the hotel, where do they visit when they're in their own local town? And it's about small destinations. So Spotlight on Italy, it's not going to go into a 300-word column. We would like a spotlight on Bari or a spotlight on a particular part of a country. So a small resort, hopefully that makes it a bit easier for people to understand, because I think it has been slightly confused, and maybe that was the way I did my little sort of introduction to it via these sort of journalist alert, but hopefully people can get on board with that as well. For us this year as well, big focus on city breaks. I think we really want to sort of ramp up our coverage on that. And again, it's about making sure that we've got people in destinations. So either journalists going out from the Sun. We're still using a fair amount of freelancers. So really like to see some pictures from freelancers as well, in terms of, something that's a bit out of the way, something a bit different. So if we're talking Benidorm, I want to find out some, hidden village that's not that far away that people could go and explore whilst they're in Benidorm. It's about expanding the readers' minds when they're actually in those big holiday favourites. Here's what you should be doing, here's where you should be going. So always looking for things like that. Also, of course, this year, I think what we are going to have to keep an eye on is the whole EES, entry exit system, and ETIAS. That will be coming at some point this year. We've no idea when, but there's going to be a huge education piece, I think, around just getting people prepared for that and understanding the impact that's going to have. As Ben said, trains huge for us as well. Anything in the UK and train seems to really just send the hits skyrocketing. I have no idea why, but some readers seem to love a train or an airport. So anything around those, I think, are really important. That's something that we really be looking to cover. And in general, of course, as we've all been saying over and over again, huge focus on video. So every single story now, every press trip that you're thinking of doing, if you're a PR, thinking of it from a perspective of video and how we can get the best video from that trip is actually going to be really important as well.
That was a great summary. Thank you so much. Let's crack on with the questions. And I'm actually, we had a quick discussion before we started, and that was, I was reading a trends report from the great new trends organization, Globe Trender. That's Jenny Southern. And one of their predicted trends for this year, they called Wonder Woman. So there are more holidays than ever being created for solo female travelers. That market segment is so hot. I think declining birth and marriage rates, tendency towards later marriages, higher proportion of women in senior roles in the workforce, etc., etc., etc. So this section is really, really taking off. And I'm going to ask maybe Laura first. How is the Times responding to the enormous growth in that segment?
Well, we have already quite a lot of features in the back catalogue, but I mean, I'm on a personal level just a really big fan of a solo trip. So I am married, but like last October ditched my husband and went on a cruise by myself, and let me tell you, it was the best week, much as I love traveling with him. So just from a personal point of view, there's a lot of us on the desk that really enjoy solo travel and go away quite a lot by ourselves, both for work and also just in the run of things. So I would say we are also seeing that trend. One of the things that we do on the Times as well is our features get syndicated out to Apple News. We did a feature that Lydia Swinsko wrote for us about her top picks that did phenomenally well, both on the Times and also with Apple News readers. And so I think the key thing for us really is to be covering all bases and also just getting away from these awful stereotypes about it just being, sad old people sat on a cruise ship on their own. There are so many opportunities, if there are new things, and the Times is, we're all about new. But where we can be showcasing those options. I mean, our big sort of strapline on this really is solo but not alone, because just there are so many trips out there that you can do with a group where you would be traveling with other people. You don't necessarily have to strike out and be on your own all of the time. There are just myriad options, and really for us it's about highlighting those and making sure that readers know about what is out there for them at different age points. A lot of our readers in print perhaps are 50 plus, but we have a lot of younger readers 30 plus online as well, who want to know what is out there for them, and it's not coach tours or holidays with brands that are well established in that field. There are a lot of other people doing really exciting things, so we want to hear about those.
So you're very open to pitches. Lisa,
Yeah.
is the Sun devoting space to solo female traveller holidays?
Yes, definitely. I mean, actually, funny enough, we were talking about this, and this is actually a story I'm trying to get together at the moment. I'd love if any PRs have got any contacts. I want somebody to do me a lovely piece on I've abandoned my husband, left them at home and gone away on holiday on my own. We're looking for case studies at the moment for that as a story. So it'd be great to hear if anyone has got anyone that they can pitch for that. But it's definitely something that chimes with particularly the print audience because it's slightly older. So offering them those opportunities to understand exactly what's out there for the solo travel market. Yes, female, but I actually think solo travel in general, it doesn't have to be just about female, I think is really important, and giving people the information that they need. Again, for the Sun, slightly more of hand holding in our market. So I think those tours where people can join fellow like-minded travellers is going to be really important as well.
Fantastic. All right, the questions are coming in. We want more, so do just keep those questions coming in. I've got one first of all from Cass Hellstrip. Hi, Cass, from Click CPR, who asks, given the changeover, I guess Cass is asking this, given the changeover in the US presidency, are you nervous about commissioning US at the moment, or as she says, is it business as usual? Ben, I'll come to you there first. I know you're strong on the USA.
I mean, it's obviously it's a big moment for America. It's a big moment for the rest of the world. I think I doubt very much whether it will stop people wanting to visit. And on that basis, we will be covering. I'd be surprised if this year we don't cover more even than we did last year. The US, as I mentioned when I was sort of burbling on earlier, I think it can be a daunting destination just in terms of cost, tipping, those sort of ancillary costs that I think that European visitors occasionally find a little bit surprising or wearing. We would certainly want to get across stories that deal with the etiquette of that, but there are ways of sort of mitigating some of those costs as well. You know, I think people will be going to the US and potentially wanting to get a rental property rather than necessarily stay in a hotel. They might cut their cloth a little bit in terms of eating out, and I think we'll be trying to get across that information as much as possible. But it certainly shouldn't deter us from writing about what I think from a UK audience point of view and specifically the Telegraph's audience point of view is really one of the places they want to visit most in the world. That I think they're adult enough to probably work out whether they think that a change in presidency is going to affect their specific holiday or not. And we'll be writing about it on that basis. Yeah.
Laura, the Times, America this year?
Yeah, totally and utterly agree with Ben there. I think my aim in our scheduling is usually we try and get, one North America piece in, usually US, and or Canada a week. I mean, we really burn through those stories. They do really well for us. I mean, as Ben says, I think the biggest sticking point is going to be tipping, and taxes. And also currency, really. So it's about finding, as Ben said in his initial piece, value ways for people to get to the States, whether that's with, some of the new airlines that we're seeing, like Norse going in, whether that's destinations that are perhaps outside of New York and California, which, are traditionally the heartlands. But I don't think our readers are going to stop going to Orlando for their trip of a lifetime because Trump's in. I think that is not going to change. And as Ben says, I mean, we're looking to do as much, if not more, this year.
Terrific. Okay, thanks for that fairly convincing answer. Lisa, I think I'll pitch this one to you. So this is Amelia. Amelia, sorry if I don't attempt your surname. I would just get it wrong. I'm sorry. She's from Tourism New Zealand. That's Tin Man. And she asks, good question. How do we approach long-haul travel with cost of living in mind? Because we've heard from our panelists this morning that long haul Australia's coming back, New Zealand's coming back. Is New Zealand a kind of sell for the sun this year? Is it the kind of destination you will be pitching?
Hi, there's Ben. Hello, Ben. I think I'm meant to be talking, but anyway, I'll carry on talking and we'll see what happens. Yes, it is going to be a focus for us, more so than it has been in the last few years. Obviously, with the pandemic, things have been a challenge. Just quickly on the last question about USA as well, I think for us, it is going to be a focus this year as well, because of course you've got the World Cup coming in 2026. So there's going to be a story there in terms of actually just familiarising people with those host cities, what to do, where to go. It's the kind of thing people are going to start planning this year for next year. So US, definitely World Cup, that is going to be a big focus for us. In terms of long haul, it's about demonstrating value all the time. Everything is going to be about value. We are interested in writing more about Australia, New Zealand, but it is still going to be, obviously for the Sun's readership, it's still going to be that trip of a lifetime bucket list stuff. So we're going to have to be making sure that we're covering off all the basics and making sure that we've got the best value in doing that.
Yeah. But Laura, for example, there must be still pent-up demand from people who want to go and see Australia, New Zealand, and economics are maybe playing into their hands a bit more with inflation under control, interest rates coming down, the pound in a reasonably good position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, as I said, I think sports will help, highlight the fact that, Australia is still there and open for business. I mean, what we're seeing with our readers is they want to go for longer, and they tell us that they want to be doing, lots of things within one trip. So they might do a bit of a road trip. They might have a train trip. They might get a camper van. They might do some city breaks. So I think for us, we're largely looking at how we come up with itineraries and things that work for readers who might want to do perhaps 3 rather than 2 weeks there. And I also, I mean, I wonder about whether people are thinking about combining Australia and New Zealand, perhaps in a way that they weren't before. But yeah, no, absolutely. And as Ben mentioned about the cost of flights, I mean, Chris Haslam, our chief travel writer, did a big deep dive into the cost of flights with Chinese airlines, and obviously that is, there are flight routes are at the fore at the moment, but how you can get to Australia for less, I think, is a really good question right now, and we're going to be looking at that, I think, all year this year.
Terrific. Okay, we've got a couple of questions coming in on AI, so let's do this. But these are the questions. Well, sorry, what I need you to cover off is AI from the perspective of the quality of travel writing and how travel writing evolves with AI. And Laura, I know you've got some thoughts on that. I'd like it if our panel could discuss the influence and involvement of AI in PR's pitching materials and how PRs reach out to you. But then thirdly, if it doesn't become too complicated, the importance of AI in the travel booking process, given that AI can do incredible things with timetables and international boundaries and visa requirements and all the rest of it. So Kirsty Innes from Argyll Tourism Board in Scotland says, I'd like to know the take on AI in the travel industry. She talks of a tour operator that's really stressing the employee touch. Is the human touch going to keep ChatGPT at bay, says Kirsty. Equally, I've got Robin Ellis from Quinn London here, who wants to ask, how much is AI influencing consumer travel plans? And I guess that's the way people book holidays. But I would also like our panel to discuss AI in journalism and PR. Laura, you said you'd like to cover this, so you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a really, really interesting year on this. And what I would say is that at News, we are, really trying to use AI where appropriate. So there is actually a headline tool at the moment within the Time system where you can generate an AI automated headline. And let me tell you, it does not work at the moment. And you get some absolutely comical stuff coming back. So there are places for it sometimes on news stories. I think what we're seeing in travel and features is that is, it's an interesting experiment, and it's great to have it sometimes as a starting point. But there are still sub-editors making sure that these headlines work, because otherwise it would be nonsense. And there are also, legal implications with some headlines on court reporting and things that AI just cannot get its head around. But also, I think, actually, I know everyone has been really worried about this, journalists especially, freelancers, that stories are kind of being replaced with AI. But I actually think AI is really helping to set the bar even higher for us. In terms of Google and ranking and where our evergreen content sits, we have to make sure that it's absolutely top notch. If there is anything that is duplicating elsewhere, or kind of just doesn't work or doesn't feel like it's expert, it just doesn't work. And Google in their guidelines have been really quite cagey about actually coming outright and saying that people's bylines, as Lisa alluded to, that expertise actually helps pages rank, but it certainly looks like that the input of freelance journalists, where they have that expertise, does really help. And we recently, you'll notice on the Times that we've started including job line titles in our byline structure, and that's partly in response to Google saying this now, that freelancers and their input is really important. But equally, I mean, we have AI tools, for example, that will spot plagiarism. We have AI tools that will help transcribe the spoken word for video. So there is definitely a place for it within news, but we are not going to be replacing journalists at this point with AI for sure. And like other businesses, this company is using it where it's appropriate and where it can take some of the legwork out of certain things, data and analytics for us, where perhaps we might use things with graphics and maps, that sort of stuff. But in terms of the words, I really can't foresee news, replacing us all with robots just yet.
That is very good news. Best news I've heard so far this year. Laura, Ben, your thoughts on AI, please.
I would echo absolutely everything Laura's just said. I mean, I think we're experiencing exactly what the times are in terms of trying to work within Google's algorithm in terms of search, and you do definitely get a sense that Google has a real response when you manage to show that a human is involved in creating content that cannot exist anywhere else. So that, I mean, in a way, that's great. I mean, I don't think it's even a discussion really. You can of course ask ChatGPT to write a destination guide to Rome, and actually you can see it interestingly being delivered by TripAdvisor as well. They have AI driven itineraries, and I mean, not in any way to pass comment on them. You read them, and I think the problem is, from my point of view, is I read them as someone who knows that it has been generated by AI. So you look at it and you go, well, what is the heart of this? What is the truth of this? What is the organising principle here? And you hope somewhere, I think in general, that a human has been involved in this, because they're likely to make all the sort of human instinctive choices that you'd want. And Laura was talking about itinerary content. There's obviously a merit in trying to use AI in order to construct itineraries, but at the moment I don't think it's at a position yet where you would at the end of it go, well, I'll take that one rather than the bespoke hand-tooled, crafted by monks on the hill of wherever that I like to hope that all our content is delivered by. I mean, to Laura's point as well, I would be emphasizing at all times that our content is produced by in-destination experts, particularly evergreen content, is produced by in-destination experts who are working incredibly hard to make sure that the choices they make are absolutely right for our audience. And I see no merit in that changing in any time frame whatsoever. We do, as Laura, I'm sure Lisa does as well at News, you use AI to do an awful lot of the backroom stuff now. But it's only the stuff that you'd expect us to be using it for. It's nothing to do with the interface between PR and journalist, or between journalist and reader. It's to do with metrics. It's to do with joining bits of the back end of a website up. There are experiments here as well about using it as a summary tool. You can make it sort of go through a piece and condense it into 5 bullet points. And it has a certain amount of merit there. If you're asking it to give you a quick summary of a news story, I think it can work there. It doesn't really work at all if you're trying to ask it to do it to a first-person written piece, an experiential piece, because humans write those things. That's how they are interesting. So we're not at the stage where that's happening even for that at the moment. As a booking plan, and you mentioned that, Henry. I mean, AI is happening everywhere. We're just not. It's not like there's a big badge saying this is actually happening to you now. But certainly booking stuff, flight booking, all that sort of stuff. There's an AI engine behind that at all times, and we're all benefiting from that. And that's exactly where it should be.
Yeah, and that's agentic AI rather than generative. And exactly. Lisa, to you, your thoughts, and also, are you seeing AI creeping into PR's pitches? Do you see hallucinated content? We're not going to mention any names, but we're interested.
Don't get me started on that. Honestly.
Please do.
I think there is definitely, you're seeing quite a bit of that, and also the sort of data-driven stuff that comes from the digital PR agencies. That doesn't really work for us. A lot comes in. I open my inbox up every morning. I've probably got 30 or 40 emails from digital PR specialists that really aren't going to work for me. In terms of AI, that's exactly why I said in my sort of little slot earlier on that expert views and actually us being the expert authoritative voice ourselves on the travel desk, we're all travel experts, is ever more important in a world where there is going to be so much AI generated content. I think we've got to make sure that we are shown to be the ones who are the experts. Hence the reason, as Laura said, if you go onto my bio on the Sun's website, it's a very long, extensive bio. And that is because we're looking for Google to see us as the experts. And hopefully that will help us push our stories to greater audiences because of that. As Ben says, yes, we've got the... I do find the one that we've got for sort of transcribing, that's really good. Actually, it's actually very good. It works. I'm actually quite impressed with it. And we do occasionally use, I might occasionally use, if I'm doing a bit of research, I might occasionally use our own News Assist to help with that. But obviously, with anything like that, you always then have to double check that everything that they've served up is correct. I think we're journalists. We have a healthy skepticism about everything. And as long as we carry on like that, I have had, in the last year, a freelance journalist who pitched me an article. I said yes to it. The article arrived, and there was just something odd about it. As Laura says, we've got software here that can help us see if this piece has been AI generated. It came up as being 100% AI generated, and to the exact same article had appeared in the New Zealand Telegraph. So very odd conversation with the travel editor of the New Zealand Herald to explain that, one, the piece had been written by AI, and two, they'd already sold exactly the same article to the New Zealand Herald. So we're having to ever more look out for what we're actually getting coming in. It's just about making sure that you're doing all of those checks and balances as you would do anyway if you're a decent travel journalist.
Yeah, terrific. Guess that relationship with that journalist didn't last long. Just to say, the summit at TravMedia's IMM this year is focused on the media's fight back against AI and big tech, and preserving and protecting the media industry. We've got some amazing speakers, including Graham Lovelace, who is the absolute de facto expert in the media and copyright and AI. So hope we'll see you there. If you want to book for IMM, preferencing starts next Monday. So really, you need to book this week or you'll miss out. Right, moving rapidly on. More questions. Quick question, Ben, on Safari, if I may, because we've got a question from Claire Roadley, if I may pitch that, if I can find it. I've got so many questions here. She's just saying she's the absolute expert in Africa and safaris. And Claire has said, Claire from Umlingo, what new safari angles are you looking for? She said that journalists have been saying that when it comes to safari pictures, it's often very tried and tested, and we've heard it before. So what could be new in safaris that you're on the look for, Ben?
I think it is the case that, I mean, we know that our audience really likes safari holidays. And I think one of the big tests is trying to get them to feel like they already don't know everything about it. You know, there is a problem in that it's effectively the story is always go to extraordinary part of usually Africa, obviously, and see extraordinary animals, and that becomes the narrative very, very quickly. So I'm not convinced that the way in is always to get first-person stories in on safaris. I think quite often you want to theme them around whether it's a walking safari or whether it's a safari to see specific species. And we will probably, I mean, I'm not denying that we would produce first-person experiential things on that, but I do wonder with an audience that really has done a few and knows what they're talking about, whether the answer is simply to get more out there. It's like what I was saying about cruise to cruise well. I wonder if the answer is now to safari well, rather than to deluge them with individual sort of first-person pieces that where you see them sort of walking through the bush and seeing X, Y, or Z. I feel as though that's a story that's been written a lot. I've enjoyed writing some of them myself, but I wonder whether we've moved into a different world now, where I think we maybe explore safari in general, not all the time, more through the prism of a particular theme. And that, as I say, it could be any number of things. It could be from the water, it could be walking, it could be a specific species, or however you want to cut it. But there's still plenty of ideas out there. I just think we've got to be a bit clever about how we talk to the audience on it.
Okay, quick one for Lisa from Matt Skills of Universal. Question on video press trips. Are you looking for someone who can cover off both words and pictures on a trip, or are you looking for people who will do video only? Matt asks.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the budget to commission someone to do video. I think a good demonstration was what happened with Icon of the Seas in January last year when they launched, Royal Caribbean launched the biggest cruise ship in the world. They had both photographers and videographers on board, and you could book a slot. You could book a 2-hour slot with them. It meant that for something that's quite fixed, like a cruise ship, it was really good because I got to have a great whiz round for a couple of hours. I think I did over 15,000 steps in one day just on one cruise ship. But it meant that I then had an idea of where I wanted to shoot, and I could do lots of pieces to camera in various different places, and it ended up being really good videos. So, PR companies stroke destinations that actually aid us in terms of getting to that point. I cannot wait for Epic Universe. I'm so excited, and Matt knows that I'm there straight away for that trip. It's going to be really important that obviously with something like that, in a brand new theme park, video is going to be absolutely central to it, and that's going to be the thing that we're going to be looking to do first. And then we then go into, it's the first look. We want that video first look, then we can deep dive into it, obviously in print and online. But that first look is going to be really important. And it probably will just be me running around with, a phone, and any help I can get with that would be amazing.
20,000 steps this time, Lisa. Laura, quickly to you, because I know the Times is looking to do more video content. Are you finding, maybe with the help of PRs, you're securing freelancers who can do words and pictures really well? Is there a good trend there?
Yeah, definitely. And when we're trying to make it as easy as possible, we were experimenting with all sorts of different formats. So one of the things that we did for Chris Haslam's Boxing Day piece about 20 years on from the tsunami was doing short video snippets that were embedded all the way through a feature, as well as some of those longer videos. So yeah, video remains really, really important. We have a dedicated video editor, Min Set-Hein, who works with us. And where we can, we want to be making it easy for freelancers and staff members to go out and be shooting, really relevant content on the ground.
Fantastic. I'm not going to have the chance to cover off everyone's questions. So what I'm going to try and do is make sure we just send the questions on to our panel afterwards, if that's okay with everyone. I have promised we'll stop at the top of the hour. And to get us there and to wrap up today, I would just like to ask Laura and Lisa and Ben where they might personally be traveling this year, if they can disclose this, where they'd like to travel, so that they get a flurry of invites from our audience. So Laura, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, big fan of Canada, and I would like to get back to Toronto. Obviously, new Virgin flight I think is really exciting. There's never a point where I think Toronto is a bad idea. Absolutely all the good bits of LA and New York in one fabulous spot. So yeah, Toronto for me. Great, that's marvellous. Ben, where might you wish to head in 25?
I'm afraid I've already revealed this in a piece that was published a couple of weeks ago. I want to go to El Hierro, the tiniest, most remotest. Although none of them are particularly remote. Canary Island. It's the last one that I haven't been to. It's the only one I haven't been to, and I'm hoping it's going to be a sort of similar version of La Gomera, which I went to a couple of years ago to do hiking, and I want to do hiking there. So that's what I'm going to be doing this year.
Fantastic. Sounds a wonderful idea. Are you thinking of going down to Australia for the Ashes?
I'm not, sadly.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Ben. And Lisa, to wrap, where would you like to travel in 25?
Well, funny enough, I will be ending up in Toronto. I'm really excited. I am doing a camper van trip from New York all the way up to Niagara Falls, and I can't wait for that. That's the kind of thing, exploring part of America I haven't seen before, which is that whole sort of New England across to Rhode Island, that kind of side of things. I'm really looking forward to that.
Such a wonderful idea. I hope that happens. I hope you all achieve those trips this year. I know how busy you are as editors. You've all been fabulous. Thank you so much to Laura Jackson at the Times, Lisa Minot at the Sun, Ben Ross at the Telegraph. Wonderful start to the year. Hugely entertaining. Can't thank you all enough. You've been brilliant. And thank you to you, our TravMedia audience, for joining us in such great numbers today. I will also try and get your questions to the panelists So thank you so much for joining us, and see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.